umbilical cord is wrapped around her neck. We're gonna have to get her out. Now! You're gonna have to push and push as hard as you can. A wave of fear took over me. The room was the most intense it had been in 34 hours. My husband was by my side with tears running down his face. He squeezed my hand, looked deep into my eyes, and assured, "Honey, you can do this. I love you. She's almost here." My body was shaking. I was terrified. But I pulled myself together. I took a deep breath and I told myself, okay, my baby needs me right now. I'm going to have to push as hard as I can. I can do this. I will do this for her. It all started about 35 hours before, when I was lying wide awake in the middle of the night. I was 39 weeks pregnant and almost every night was extremely uncomfortable. For 6 months, I slept only on my left side, completely surrounded by pillows, separating me farther and farther from my husband. Then I suddenly felt a sharp pain in my stomach. I looked at the clock and it was only 3 a.m. So I wondered, why does my stomach hurt right now? It normally never hurts. Oh my god, am I having a contraction? So I turned and gently nudged my husband, who immediately bolted out of bed, screaming, "We have to go to the hospital! We have to call the doula! Our baby will be here in the morning! I'm so excited!" Yeah, it's been a long wait, and we were both concerned because we would have had to start considering a cesarean if she wouldn't come out by the end of the week. But I calmed him down and instead I started timing my contractions and writing them in my notebook. Between 3 a.m. and 6 a.m., the pain is coming only every 30 minutes. It didn't seem so bad, but it was still too painful to try to sleep. To be honest, at that point, I still wasn't sure if it was really it, because I had no idea what contractions were supposed to feel like. But then I had diarrhea. Some friends told me that that's the body's way of flushing itself to prepare for birth. I thought to myself, wow, this is really happening. I'm gonna meet my daughter really soon. The doctor told me that I should call my doula when my contractions were coming closer together, and my doula will call the doctor when I'm ready. A doula is a birthing coach that is like a highly experienced friend who gives a kind of emotional support that only someone who has gone through it herself can do. So at 7 a.m., I sent my doula a message with everything that had been happening. Hi, my contractions are coming around every 30 minutes and would last about 40 seconds. But her reply gave me the first shock of the day. She told me that giving birth for the first time always takes longer, and I was probably not going into labor yet. Then, she said that I could still be days away, and that I should try to relax and get as much sleep as I could. How can anyone sleep with this much pain? I was planning for an all-natural birth in water, so I trusted her and I did my best to calm myself down and to try to relax. But relaxing was proving to be much more difficult than I had thought, and it was already 12 hours. My stomach was hurting so much. It's so hard to describe. Some people say it's kind of like menstrual cramps, but for me, I can't say I've ever felt any kind of pain like this when I had my period. Around 5 p.m., the contractions started to hurt even more, and were moving closer together, 15 to 20 minutes apart. So I texted my doula and I asked her, maybe now I should go to the hospital? But she said it's not time yet. And it's better for me to stay home for as long as possible because I would be more relaxed at home than I would be in the hospital. Right. Relaxed. I really tried to bear with the pain for as long as I could, but around 8 p.m., I was in so much pain I could barely move. My husband and I stood facing each other, holding hands and taking deep breaths together to try to manage the pain in any way that we could. Around 10 p.m., each contraction lasted about 40 seconds to a minute. At that point, I really felt like I couldn't take it anymore. So I asked my husband to call the doula and ask her to please come over. When she arrived, she tried to comfort me, but really nothing was helping. The pain kept increasing and increasing until around 1 a.m. when I just felt like I couldn't take it anymore. So I told them, please, we have to go to the hospital. Thank God it was only 5 minutes away. When we arrived, the nurse brought me straight to the delivery room, and she asked me to change my clothes and wait in bed. Then she strapped some belts around me that evaluates the baby's health. That's called a non-stress test. Our doctor arrived around 2 a.m. and gave me the second shock of the day. Women usually give birth once their cervix is opened up to 10 centimeters. Well, she said my cervix was only dilated 2 centimeters. Then she also said it was gonna take at least another 12 hours, maybe even another day. I was speechless. How could this even be possible? At that point, everything started to feel like a blur. The idea of giving birth naturally in water with no pain medication was moving farther and farther away from me. All I wanted was just to tell the doctor, please give me anything to make this pain go away. But my husband knew how much I wanted to give birth without medication, so he asked me just to hold on a little while longer. I said, okay, I will keep trying. so the nurse went to prepare the tub for water births in the room next door. The delivery room for women who want to give birth naturally was so beautifully decorated, but in that moment, I was just in so much pain that I couldn't see anything anymore. All I could think about was how much longer this was gonna take. I felt like I had no energy left. I wasn't even in there for more than 15 minutes before the doctor came in to ask if I wanted an epidural. An epidural is a powerful pain medication that's injected directly into the spine. I answered without even thinking, "Yes, please, I can't take it anymore." So they took me to another room where I had to expose my back for the injection. They told me I had to lay as still as possible. It was excruciating. And once the epidural was in, I still had to wait 15 to 30 minutes before the pain would start to go away. It was a huge relief, but it was also really scary because from the waist down, I couldn't feel anything anymore. At around 3 a.m., the doctor said to me, "You're gonna have to try to get some rest because no one knows when you're gonna be ready to give birth." I tried to sleep, but with the mixture of the weird numb pressure around my belly, the excitement of giving birth, and the fear that everything could go wrong, well, I was wide awake. The doctor came to check in on me again at 8 and 11 a.m., but I still wasn't ready. They had to keep administering more and more drugs. When the drugs would wear off, I would feel a pain in my lower belly, but I really couldn't tell where exactly. I was just utterly worn out. I remember laying there and thinking to myself, "This is so difficult. I just want to meet my baby. When will you come out to meet us?" Around 1 p.m., the doctor came back again. And then things suddenly started to happen. She was excited and asked me, "Do you want to try pushing? I think you might be ready." I hadn't slept in over 30 hours. Exhausted was an understatement, but in that moment, I had never felt so ready and so excited. I answered her without even a moment of hesitation. Yes, I'm ready." Like I mentioned before, everything from the waist down was completely numb. But the doctor said that I should just think of pushing and my body would do the rest. So I gave it a try, and then everything changed. The doctor jumped up and shouted, "You're ready, you're pushing great, now let's do this right now." The nurses were scrambling to transform my bed into a delivery chair. There were hooks to lift and spread my legs and handles for me to grab on both sides. I was so excited, it was finally happening. From the very first moment that my stomach started hurting until now, it was 34 hours. There are no words to describe how I felt in that moment. It was like a combination of exhaustion and excitement, and what felt like a veil of magic had descended upon us. My husband held my hand on my right, and a nurse held my hand on my left, and there were another two supporting the doctor on each side. It was finally happening. The doctor told me that I had to wait for a contraction to push, and then push 3 times for as long and as hard as I could. So, I looked at the clock in front of me and I said to myself, "Okay, I'm going to push for 15 seconds each time." Because of the epidural, I couldn't feel the contractions anymore, so a nurse had to use a cardiotocography to measure them and announce when I'd be ready for the next set. My focus was only on the clock and on pushing. Those are the only 2 things in my mind, clock and push. I could hear my husband and the nurses cheering me on, and I turned to them occasionally, but my focus always went back to the clock. The entire room felt like it was in a trance. Delivery is the final stage of giving birth, and it usually takes around 5 to 30 minutes. But as with everything that day, I took longer. I was 1.5 hours into pushing, and my body was getting weaker and weaker, but my baby girl showed no intentions of coming out. At 2 p.m., the doctor asked if she could cut me a little downstairs. She was convinced that the baby would be out in minutes. "Yes, of course," I said. All I wanted was for her to come out, and even if I would tear more, I really just didn't care anymore. I would have done anything for her to come out. After I tried and tried to push with all of my energy, the doctor said she started to see the head. "You're going to have to push harder. She's so close," she said. I took a deep breath and I told myself, "Okay, big pushes. I can do this." Then I pushed as hard as I could, and then it happened. The doctor burst out in happiness and shouted, "She's out! The head is out!" But then, panic struck. "The umbilical cord is wrapped around her neck. There's no more time. You're going to have to push harder. Push with everything you got, or else she could suffocate." It felt like time stood still. I looked at my husband and we locked eyes in determination. They grabbed all of my limbs, and with one massive final push, the entire room stood still and silent. Our little baby Ray rose from our doctor's arms, and the entire room erupted into a celebration. The doctor untangled the cord, my husband cut it into two, and the nurses wrapped her in a cloth and handed her to us. I just couldn't stop looking at her. I couldn't believe this was the baby I had been carrying for 9 months. She was just so beautiful. It was love at first sight. It was the happiest day of my life. Of course, this all was just my experience. Some of my friends gave birth in only a few hours, and other mothers took even longer. So if there are other mothers watching this video, we'd love to hear your story of giving birth in the comments below. And if you want to see more videos like this, don't forget to like and subscribe.